Hey folks, welcome back to Painting with Victor Rigoli. I'm in my garage this beautiful spring Friday afternoon, and I'm working on a actual building some stretcher bars for canvas. I did a painting, and my wife came up in the studio last night. I was talking to her about how I should rearrange things, or even if I should rearrange things, and limited space, trying to make it bigger and all that. And she noticed a painting that I had, and I think it's about like a 10 by 10 or something. And it's a beach scene there on St. Simon's Island, and had some people on the beach, and they're packing up because storm's coming, and that's the title of the painting. But the majority of it, like 3/4 of the painting, was a lot of gray sky. And she said, well, why don't you cut that down and make that smaller? And so I was looking at it, and I said, I could probably do an 8 by 10. And of course, that was on a gallery wrapped canvas, which is, an 1.5 inches, like this, 1.5 inches here. And so I said, well, I did go to a store locally, and I bought one already stretched on 1.5 inches. And I said, well, I had some scrap material. This is a 1.5 by, I'm going to measure it. I don't think it's a 1 inch across. Yeah, it's about like 3/4 of an inch, And so I thought, well, hey, this might work out pretty good. And what I did is I took my router, because in your canvas, you don't want it to be just squared off, because when you wrap the canvas and stretch the canvas around, it's going to come up and it's going to go across this way. And so right here, on the edge, you want it to kind of taper down. You want it to be cut down to where it doesn't have that edge. So in the event that you inadvertently kind of press on that side, it doesn't put a crease across your canvas. So you want to avoid that. So what I did is I have a router, and I used a bit on my router, and I just kind of rounded it off on that edge. And I went ahead and pre-cut these stretcher bars out, and for 8 by 10, and I cut them all at a 45-degree angle. And what you're doing is you're actually measuring the perimeter to get your length. So right here is 10 inches, across here is 8, all the way around. Now comes the fun part of actually gluing this together. The supplies you'll need, I use this permanent wood glue that you can get down at your local box store, Lowe's, Home Depot, whatever. I use it. I like it. I got me a nice little paper towel here. You get glue on your hands, you want to wipe it off. And also, if you get glue, that once you put it in the straps and tighten it up, the glue will, beat up a little bit. So you want to wipe that off. One of the things that I do as well is I have these little blocks of wood that I use to kind of raise the frame or the stretcher bars up. And this allows me to, put the stretcher bars up on these little blocks like this. And then I'll show you in just a minute how I use those. So what I do is I come in here like this, and I've got it up like that, and make sure I get it in there, and then I've got it all set right in there, okay, before I start gluing it. Because what happens is when I use this strap, it will, I want it to get kind of down a little bit, but I want it to be off the mat thing here, my workspace here. This is something that you can get pretty much, you can order it online from Amazon. You can get it at, places like Home Depot. You can get it at Lowe's, whatever. I think I picked this one up down at Lowe's. And I always use an extra little block here on the end so I can just kind of rest the handle there. I always turn this down all the way, make it tight. And then I start putting it around like so. This little device what it's good for is squaring up, whether you're building a picture frame or you're, building stretcher bars or whatever. It allows you to get that thing square. One of the other things that you can do with in squaring this up is that you can get your square and lay it up there and make sure that you got a good 45-degree angle there. What I like to do is I just like to kind of pull it tight and get it as tight as I can without really messing it up too much and everything. And that's pretty good. Now what I'm going to start doing is I'm going to start gluing. Okay. So I'm going to slide this piece up like this, take my little wood glue, put some on the edge here. One of the things I'm going to do, Father's Day is coming up several months, and birthdays, anniversaries, that kind of thing. I want to get me a little nail gun. Eventually will get one and use it to drive a little nail into the corners and everything. And that just strengthens your stretcher bars. One of the things that you can also do, and I'll try to do the demo on that as well, is there's what's called, I call them little elbow nails. They're like an L shape. Actually it's a V shape nail, and I can put those in the corners right here, and that works out good too, and that adds a little bit of strength. I could probably only get one on here due to the thickness of this particular piece of wood, but when I've done picture frames and other stuff, if I was working with it like that, I could put a couple of those little V-shaped nails into the wood, and that just adds strength to your picture frame or to your stretcher bars or whatever it is that you're working on. They're real tiny. Sometimes I have to use my needle nose pliers to kind of hold them in place, and then use the hammer and nail them in with the hammer. Of course, I got my little doohickey there. Now, I didn't sand these or anything yet. I did sand here, and I recommend doing that. I sanded off because this is the side that the canvas is going to go on and lap over, and I sanded all that down right there. But I'm putting this in, getting it in there, and I think this is going to square up real nice. Get that tight. And the good thing about this thing is once you start screwing it, it's pushing it in, and at the same time, it's pulling the band and locking everything into place. And so what you can do is you could go around and make sure things are flush and square and all that kind of good stuff. And I don't know if you can see on the camera, but I did get a little bit of glue that's come up. You squeeze that, it tightens that puppy up, and you're going to get a little bit of glue in there all the way around. Okay. And right now, I just realized that I just messed up on this end, and I want to show you why. Is because my rounded edge, I inadvertently put it upside down. So I'm glad I caught that, because I've done this before, and it's like, oh crap, man, I really messed up. And so what I want to do is make sure my rounded side is up. Got it around, great. All right, we'll put this down, get it back down in there. I knew it kind of looked funny. I said, what in the world? What did I do? So I'm going to crank that back down, and we'll tighten that back up. And then here we go. We're going to start tightening this bad boy up. Get this squared in here. And you got to be careful sometimes too, and you want to make sure it's flush all the way around, because sometimes this device will shift your wood a little bit. And so what you have to do is you got to work with it. Now, one of the things you can do too, if it's off just a little bit, and it's off a little bit right there, it's not going to hurt anything, because why? I can take a sanding block or my sander, palm sander, and I can sand all that off. Okay, it's not that much. In fact, I will go around this and sand a little bit of this edge, because this is the edge that the canvas is going to come up and then go across, and I don't want it to be a real strong point right there. I don't want it to damage the canvas as I stretch it. I haven't decided yet if I'm going to use pre-primed canvas, which I have a roll of that, or just what I call naked or nude canvas. Okay. I'll if I do that, I'll just put the gesso on it, and it should be good to go. All right, so we got that set, and it's doing good, I think. Down in there, one of the things I want to do is I want to try to set this over, lay it flat. I think it's pretty level. And I'll just set all these blocks over to the side. Probably making a lot of too much noise. We'll do a little cleanup, glue off the tip there, and it's looking good all the way around. But anyway, thanks guys for tuning in and checking back in with Painting with Victor Rigoli. Nice little stretcher bars here for 8x10 canvas. It's going to be gallery wrap. I will do another video on stretching the canvas, okay? And check back later. It ought to be a blast. Give me a thumbs up. Hopefully you like this. Please give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Help my channel to grow. Send it out to your friends, other artists.